Welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
There's always an excuse to give up. I mean, if you don't want to do something or something hard is in front of you, you will always be able to find probably even a legitimate excuse not to do it. The people that succeed are the ones that have the discipline, that say, I'm going to keep plugging away, I'm going to keep swinging, I'm going to keep trying. So, no, I think my SEAL class started with 185 candidates and we graduated 22.
Hack Your Happiness is a podcast designed to bring you the behind the scenes of what brings iconic individuals happiness, plus their life hacks.
I'm Mercedes.
And I'm Anastasia.
Today, we are speaking with Rorke Denver.
Rorke Denver.
Rorke Denver.
Rorke Denver.
Former Navy SEAL
Command leader and went on over 200 missions.
Best-selling author.
Now he's written 2 books and he's a public speaker.
He is none other than the one and only
An amazing human.
Rorke Denver.
What drives you, motivation or discipline?
Like if you thought of it as an engine, motivation is the spark plug and discipline is the rest.
What is your top tip for staying calm underneath pressure?
I still think most people don't realize the power of it. The number one hack.
And so what do you think is one lesson that you have learned from your journey as a SEAL that you would like to teach your daughters?
If I could have anything, I would say not to quit. And like I said, from what my dad taught me.
Welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
Welcome, Rorke.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mercedes. Good to see you.
Yes, thank you so much. We are just so excited to have you on today and to be speaking with you. You're a former Navy SEAL commander. So Rorke, tell us a bit about yourself and your backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. I grew up in the Bay Area, California, so right in the heart of what's now Silicon Valley, where all the tech world kind of exploded. When I was a kid, I'm old enough that was just starting. It was like apricot orchards and a normal place to grow up and nowhere near the level of, one, expense to live there, and two, kind of the excitement that's blown up in that valley. But I grew up there, great parents, very, very lucky in that regard, very disciplined, bright father. My mom's also, brilliant, smart, but much more artistic. So I kind of had the benefit of both of those. And then big into sports. I just loved athletics. That was kind of my primary grounding as I kind of moved through school. I wrestled with studies quite a bit. I didn't add a learning disability that really challenged me on math and numbers and sequencing. So that was hard, but sports was just a real anchor point and a great place where I found success. And then I was lucky enough to play, I got recruited to play college sports in 2 different sports. I played water polo and aquatics, which is big in California. And then I played lacrosse, which in that era was primarily an East Coast sport. And I went back to a camp at Syracuse, which not because lacrosse, but both my parents actually went to Syracuse. My grandfather went to Syracuse. So we had a lot of history there. And I went out there having no idea that's how people got recruited. And the coach said, I can't believe anybody's playing, as well as you're playing now in California. We'd love to have you. And he recruited me and ended up with a scholarship to go out there. And the rest was history for that. We got to, play and compete and win a couple national championships and ended up a captain by my senior year. And then my senior year of college, I think like a lot of young folks, unless you're totally sure on what you want to do next, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be, an accountant, whatever that might be. I really didn't have that. And I think a lot of people don't. They don't know exactly what they want to do next. So I'm a big reader. I love to read. Literature and books are a huge part of my life. I read, my dad sent me a copy of Winston Churchill's My Early Life. So Winston Churchill, the great British statesman that led Great Britain and really the Allied forces through World War II. Something about that book really felt like a calling towards military service. So when I read that book, I did a bunch of research at that point, told my dad I was going to the military, which I think surprised him, but probably didn't as well. And then once I did a lot of research, there wasn't a lot written about Navy SEALs back then, but I saw one little blurb that said 70-80% of the people that try don't make it. That sounded like the right odds to me, and I went for that. So I love challenges, and if someone says you can't do it, I'm usually pretty interested in trying it. And it proved to be better than knowing I could make it. It really proved to be the right military unit. It's obviously become very famous and a lot of media attention on it, but it really is very creative, not as linear a group of thinkers as some military units are. It's just super best idea wins. We're very flat when it comes to leadership and followership, and it was a great place for me. And then I did a little bit pre 9/11, and then 9/11 happened, and we basically chased bad guys for a decade and a half. And then I finished my my career running training, and married at that point, had my kiddos, and it was time to get out of the military and get new adventures. And my first book I wrote, ended up a New York Times bestselling book. I went to promote that, and when that book was done promoting it, somebody asked me if I wanted to give a speech at a company. I did. It went well, and another company asked. I mean, could not have happened any less by my design, but I feel super lucky and blessed that it did, so it's been a good deal.
Yeah, that is amazing. It really shows that you just need to try new things and experiment, follow where your heart leads you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
box yourself into an identity. And I also just think it's so cool how, you've done so many different things from military service to becoming an author to becoming a speaker. I think it just really shows that, being a teenager, looking at your life ahead, you don't really know where it's going to take you, and just kind of appreciate that almost.
For sure. I feel like oftentimes we feel like we're going to be on a linear journey to success, but realizing that a path to success will look different for everyone.
Yeah, I think even people that have a very, kind of like what they would consider in business a hedgehog concept, which is like, we're going to do this and this only, and that's who we're going to be, rarely does it prove to be a straight line. I mean, you're going to hit challenges, you're going to hit mistakes, you're going to hit opportunities that present themselves you never considered. And so, if I'm talking to a young person, I say, I would say keep an open mind. A lot of life, most of life, as best I could tell, happens without your design. What you need to apply to that is discipline and the ability to train, to think, and to make good choices. But a lot of it are curveballs that you'll never see coming, and some of those are the best things that'll lead you down a path you didn't expect.
For sure. And speaking of curveballs, throughout your entire journey, what do you think your greatest challenge has been, and how did you overcome it?
Your listening truly means the entire world to Anastasia and I, and we would love to invite you to join the Happiness family, which is completely free, and that way you'll never miss another episode of Hack Your Happiness. You can join the family by following this podcast on whichever podcast listening platform you're on now.
I feel lucky. I look at failure and challenge as the good stuff. And I think my dad and mom both helped me and my brother look at life that way. I never looked at obstacles or barriers as something to particularly worry about. It's something to break through, jump over, go under, blow up, or head another direction if I can't get past it. So I think all of us face a tremendous number of challenges. There's not literally this one that if I'd never gotten past that, I'd have been in big trouble. I mean, to be honest, my challenges with math, made some things hard. I mean, there's one, just the rigor of school and having to do, the core courses that you're required to do. Basic math that people think is very easy is very hard for me. And then the military demands a decent amount of understanding of math and different things to run systems and jobs we have. And I just always found a way around it, or to tap into good people that are teammates around me and lean on them for things that I wasn't good at, and they could lean on me for things they weren't good at. So I think the biggest challenge is, believing in yourself, having a good core set of principles, whether that's faith or some level of philosophy or something that kind of gives you a compass bearing, and then sticking to it. And don't compromise yourself. There's, when I talk to my daughters, I'm like, look, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. Just make all of them survivable. You can't make the non-survivable mistakes. Somebody wants to go bridge jumping, that's probably worth skipping. If it's not one that a bunch of people have jumped off before. But no, other than that, I see challenges as opportunities.
I really appreciate that mindset, because I think that, so many of us look at our life and we're looking for, where's the biggest challenge? How did I overcome this? What's next? What's the next challenge I'm going to have to face, and how can I maybe prevent that? But when you see each challenge kind of, as a means to overcome it and as a way to learn and grow, you can really find a lot more happiness and joy in your journey, rather than always in how you're going to overcome and how you're going to feel once you overcome a certain situation. And so you mentioned when you were telling us a little bit about how you first got started and into the military, you didn't get accepted, according to what we found, into your first time trying to get into the Navy SEAL program. And I think that, rejection is something that a lot of teens and adults can face, be it, applying for schools or universities, or maybe wanting to be on a certain team, part of a certain movement, even friends with certain people. And so what was this rejection like to you, and how did you keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I think I answered probably a little bit in saying that, the challenge and those things that kind of get put in front of me, I look as opportunities. That is not to say I wasn't hugely disappointed. My dad, as I described, is a super disciplined person. So I was, at that age, I'm kind of traveling around, living in different spots, waiting for the opportunity to start the Navy. And so my home of record was back at his house. So the Navy letter went to his house. He opened it for me. He called me. I was working, I think, on a ranch in Colorado that time. He's like, hey, no easy way to say it. He's not a big guy for fanfare, or, trying to smooth something over. He's like, no easy way to say it. You didn't get selected. Tell me what you want to do, and happy to talk when you're ready to talk. And that was about the extent of the conversation. And to say I wasn't hugely disappointed and hurt would be inaccurate. It didn't take 2 minutes to be like, well, I'm going to reapply. I mean, I just don't like no's. And there's some no's that you have to listen to, and those are important to kind of be aware of and obviously honor and respect. But this one was just a competitive environment, and I didn't, it was my first try. I didn't know. I to be honest, and not from, I hope, an arrogant place, I was a little surprised. I mean, I don't think super highly of myself. I'm not staring in the mirror being like, oh, look how great you are. But, I had good grades. I was a Division I All-American. I was a team captain. We won national championships. I smoked the screen test, all this stuff, good letters of recommendation. I didn't get picked up. And I was like, geez, who are they taking for this program? And so I reapplied. I actually got picked up very quickly the second time. Years later, I met one of the gals. There's a lot of civilians work in the military as well, a gal that ran that whole administrative process of guys getting selected. She'd done it for like 30 years. And I met her because I was actually on the board to select the new guys coming in. And she said, and I asked her, I was like, man, I'll be honest with you. I applied my first time. I couldn't believe I didn't get accepted. I got accepted the second time. And she said, let me look up your record. She looked it up. She's like, oh, the first time you applied, probably unbeknownst to you, because you didn't go to the academy or ROTC, which is, college paths to go to the military as an officer. You applied like the last week of the year you could apply. So you were literally at the bottom of the stack. And we don't usually get to, we're going to see your record, but we've already selected probably most of the people by the time we get there. We actually put the guys then that reapply at the top of the stack, because you're exactly what we're looking for. We want the type of people that if they fail or fall or stumble are going to keep going. So it's probably only an advantage reapplying. So it frustrated me, but frustrated me to the point to keep going, and it worked out.
That's incredible. I think that the fact that, you kept going is obviously so important. But what I think is so interesting about that story is like, it wasn't you. It wasn't a fault that you had. It was just that, the system was working in a different way. They had picked different candidates. And so I think that's important for everyone is like, if you really want something, if you're really passionate about something, if you're really interested in something, don't take no, obviously to a certain extent as an answer.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a different reason. Find out why you didn't get accepted. How can you change your pivot and really look for that as a means to grow.
And I think I also love how, a no isn't always personal, and you don't always have to take it personal, because there can be external factors that can change whether you get accepted or not. And if it really is your dream, you just need to keep going and keep pursuing it.
For sure.
Definitely. So in your life and career, what drives you, motivation or discipline? Do you have any tips on how to achieve this within our goals and actions?
Yeah, I like both. I think both are kind of connected. I would say motivation, like if you thought of it as an engine, motivation is the spark plug and discipline is the rest, like the fuel, the grinds, the gears, everything that makes that vehicle actually succeed. So I'm for the spark. I don't have any problem if somebody says, I feel a fire, I feel a direction, I feel a calling. That calling will not get you to the finish line. It'll be discipline that gets you to the finish line. So I'm hugely a fan of discipline. That is the what and the how and the doing of where you want to go. And again, I don't disrespect the spark. There's just a whole bunch of people that have dreams and they're never going to put anything into action and work to get there. The people that say, hey, I have a dream, a goal, a vision, or where I want to go, I'm going to start grinding and working to move steps and get to where I want to go. Those are the people that get there, period. So I'm hugely for discipline over most other things. And if you can marry that with passion and all that great stuff, well, you're really going to be a dangerous person in the world in a good way. But no, I'd say between the two, I'd pick discipline every day of the week. But that spark is often something that gives us a direction.
That is terrific. And so how would you say, someone can kind of tap into that discipline? Like if you have a goal that you're working toward, how can you really kind of move past the feeling of motivation and like always, you know, sometimes I think maybe it's studying for a course or, you know, practicing for a sport. We're like, oh, right now, sometimes you wake up and you're like, I'm excited today. I'm going to, you know, practice my soccer skills. But then comes a time when you need to keep going. You need to keep practicing even on days when you're tired, or maybe it's kind of not super sunny outside, but you still have to keep going. And that's more of like that simple example of discipline in that regard. How can we tap into our discipline?
Yeah, I think I heard a great line on a podcast I was listening to recently, and it was kind of talking about the difference between, you know, kind of motivation or goals versus discipline or systems to get to a goal. And the example was great. It was like, look, every person that's standing at the final of the 100-meter dash has the same goal. Every one of them is looking to get to the line first. Whoever built the systems, and there's talent involved, but whoever built the systems or the preparation to do that, that's who wins. It's not the goal. I mean, the goal, like I said, everybody standing there has the same goal. Everybody that applied that year to be a SEAL that I applied, their goal was to be a SEAL. There are people that had better systems or better process to get there than I did, and I had it better in the next round, and somebody got a letter that year that I took from them in many ways. So it really is one of those where I think people just often don't get off their feet and take that first step, you know, and then once it's a practiced and repeatable thing. I think it's very, you know, every year you get to the new year, every gym on planet Earth has a bunch of new memberships. Those 2 weeks, I think there's even a name for like those 2 weeks. It's wild inside the gym. And by week 3, everybody that was there in December is there, and a bunch of those people have left because they just didn't stick to the course. And that's usually the thing. We'll probably talk about this at some other point in this conversation, but if there's one thing I could export from SEAL training and what the secret is everybody's looking for, not a shortcut, but a secret. There aren't any. It's just not to quit. I mean, literally, if you don't give up, there's a good chance you're going to see the finish line. If you give up, you're definitely not. So I don't think there's any secret to that. I think it's saying, the reality is, if it's important to you, you'll stick with it. If it's not, it wasn't important to you enough. And somebody can pretend that's not the case. That's not the case. Look, if you want to lose weight, put on muscle, you know, get stronger, get faster, get smarter, if it's important enough to you, you'll do it. If it's not, you won't. And that's about as simple as it gets.
Absolutely. And I think it's so interesting because, like you said, if it means enough to you, you'll put in the effort. And so it's really like thinking long term, like not just how you feel in the moment and how, you know, practicing whatever your goal is in the moment is going to make you feel, but how is it going to be in the long term? Like thinking, I think what I like to do is thinking like 5 years from now, I'm going to reflect back on this moment in my life. Am I going to be happy that I pushed through and studied more or trained more or, you know, fixed my sleep schedule? Or am I going to not care or not think about it or regret it? So most of the time when it comes to working towards our goals or obtaining a positive habit into our routine, we're going to be happy that we kind of stuck with it and pushed through.
Yeah, I think that as long as you're looking back, I love that of like looking back and seeing, is it going to be worth it? And in the end, am I going to remember the pain and the struggle, or am I just going to see the reward of it? Which I think is a really great mindset to also have. But I also think making a habit of it can be so helpful because it's like making your bed every day. We don't want to do it, but once we kind of start doing it every day, exactly like doing those like for 66 days of making a habit will be hard. But eventually, it just becomes like your daily routine. You're not even going to think twice about it.
Exactly.
That's right. I love that.
And so tell us, Rorke, about the role that your community of Navy SEALs and your team played in your life, your happiness, your satisfaction. What role does having a supportive team play in helping us overcome challenges?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think people might not, know of the SEAL teams is when you hear people talk about SEAL teams, if we were talking to each other, like if I was at a party and I was looking around the room, and let's say there's lots of military, but I didn't know a few people. If I asked if somebody was a SEAL, I wouldn't say, is that a SEAL? I'd say, is he a team guy? So the team is first. That's first and foremost in an organization. You've got to be a great individual contributor, but the team is everything. So we win, lose, live and die on taking care of one another and being part of a team. I'm actually personality-wise hugely introverted. So I almost peg the needle introvert. So there's lots of different concepts of what introversion, extroversion means. The best I've understood it is less does that mean you're shy or outgoing or something external. It's your internal locus of where you kind of have energy. So like my bride is super extroverted. So if we go to a party, when the party's over, she wants to talk about the party and debrief about every part of the party. I want to be quiet. I'm already exhausted from talking that much. That's more social than I like to be. I want to go fishing for a couple days and be quiet. We've got a great balance because we know each other well, and so we kind of make that work. But naturally, I'm introverted. But with that, I love being on a team. I love doing things with people, doing things in a concerted effort, focusing downfield the same way. I love team sports more than I liked individual sports. So I just love it. And look, life's hard enough without you helping it. If you have good people around you to lift you up when you fall, that you can do the same for them, it's going to be a whole lot easier. So yeah, I love being a member of a team. My family's, of course, my greatest team, but I enjoy it. it's always been something that I've drawn a lot of energy from, and I can't really ever think of when I'd just be a total lone wolf and not have a team around me.
That is such a terrific insight because, I think so many of us place ourselves into these boxes. We're like, oh, I'm extroverted. I have to spend time with, friends or family in order to be my happiest, bestest self. Or I'm introverted, so that means I need to spend lots of time in my room by myself, and that will help me be my happiest self. And yes, those are definitely, things that might correlate to your happiness and overall satisfaction. But I think it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. And like you said, when you are with the right people, you will be energized and you'll feel encouraged. And with your team of SEALs, you spend so much time in close proximity with each other, but yet you each have different means of what it means to, socialize and recharge and feel satisfied and happy. And I also think it's interesting how you mentioned that you refer to one another as team guys, because it's really about those handholds. And I think that what we've learned a lot about is through different research and different people that we've spoken to in the past is that to be resilient and get through challenges, we need to have handholds, have people that we can reach out to and lean on and get support from, be it emotional or tangible advice. And we also have to be there for other people, because the act of actually being there for others helps us feel like we have a purpose.
Totally. And being a team member is so important because you want the whole team to be a great place of inclusion and feeling like you work well together. What would be a tip for teens for being a good team member?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things you need to focus on when it comes to being a member of a team. You are going to have a role to play in that team. So maybe you're the newest member, let's say for just ease of description, the lowest member of a team, all the way up through the highest member of a team, whether that's, however that team's broken up. You need to make sure you learn your task, your piece of the pie well, and do that well, right? That's your primary job. There's a reason you're on that team. There's a reason you're playing a role, and you need to play that role well. So that's part one. Along with that, then you need to figure out, all right, am I doing my job well enough to make sure I'm a contributor holding up my end of the bargain? And then can I also carry some extra weight to help other people in what they're doing? Maybe I can pick up a task that, helps them when they're down or otherwise. Also, I'm just contributing energy, feeling and kind of just getting the team to be a place that is effective. I think sometimes team focus too much on getting along. Now, look, if a team gets along, great. More often than not, it should. I will say some of the members of my team, like my last assault team was about 20 people. If you put 20 people together, anywhere on the earth from randomly picking them out of a hat or trying to pick them perfectly for personality traits to be, seamless and have no problems, you'll never achieve it. Someone is going to get an argument. Something is going to go south. Somebody is going to disagree. That's life. And so what you have to do in a team is be okay with that in so much that you're still doing your job. I had a couple guys on my last team that, to be honest, I didn't want to get extra social time in with, but one of them was one of my medics. So trust me, if I got shot and started leaking, I would want him patching the hole. One of those guys is one of my comm guys. He's the best radio man I've ever seen. We could be in a cave in the middle of the jungle, and he could figure out a way to get a signal out so we could talk and call for help or say what we need to say. Didn't want to hang out with them after work, but definitely somebody that I trusted on the team. So being trustworthy, being competent, and having a good attitude. The attitude thing is real. Be good at that job and that attitude that's just always there, always giving max effort. You'll find a home on most teams if you're that combination.
I think it's so important to go into that situation with a mindset that you don't need to love everyone on the team. They don't all need to come out of the situation being your best friends, but knowing that you have an important place on the team so that you can do your job well. And your role is to not become super good friends with everyone, even though you can totally make good friends there. But respect that the other people are doing their jobs as well and help them out when you can. And I love that. Like, do your job well and then help others where they need to. If you can help them with anything that you know that you're strong at, do that. And then you know that they can help you whenever you need it as well.
Yeah. And you said a super important word, which is respect. That is one of the elemental things. If somebody asked me what maybe is the number one almost overarching strength of my family, my bride and my two girls, love, of course, and all the ones that you would think are there, respect probably rides over almost all of it. The respect I have for my kiddos, the respect they have for me, the respect in the way I treat my bride, they see that and the way that all kind of works together. That word is lost on a lot of people. Yeah, it's a great comment.
Even if you don't see eye to eye with someone, respecting them is essential for your own cooperation as well as for the people that you're surrounded by. And I also think another thing is, actively trying to see the best in people, be it, in your family when maybe you're having a little bit of a time of argument, or maybe you're in a new team for a sport, or, a group in a class even. Looking for the best and, okay, what is this person's strengths? How are they doing good things? Where are their good qualities? Like, are they really funny? Maybe they have really nice compliments that they give to people. Maybe they are super respectful. Maybe they have a big passion that they really, really highlight in their work and in their life. And I think when we can focus on the positive qualities of people rather than the qualities that we are not huge fans of, then we can really focus on building those positive relationships.
For sure.
So during times of adversity, while we're facing them maybe independently or with a team, be it our family, our friends, etc., how do you maintain a strong mindset to push through a challenging situation? And what would you say are your top 3 tips for overcoming adversity?
Yeah, I think one thing to do is to practice it. And by that, I say do hard things. I ask my daughters all the time to do hard things. I think when they were really young, I think parents were getting ready to report me to Child Protective Services not because I do anything harsh. It's just like if my daughter, when she was really young, was having a hard time zipping up her jacket on the playground when it was cold, I'd be like, you can do it. She'd get frustrated and upset. I had a couple times when another mom came over to do it. I was like, don't even think about it. She can zip her jacket and watch. And there'd be screams and tears, and then she'd zip her jacket, be like, right, and now you're always going to be able to zip your jacket. So that's a small example, but doing hard things, like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, in my mind, inoculates you to doing hard things. Because I promise you, every person listening to this podcast, hard is going to come your way, and it's going to come multiple times. You cannot avoid it. There is no place to hide. We're all going to be in this thing together, but you're going to hit hard spots. You can either put your head in the sand and pretend like it's not happening or not practice for it, or you can practice for it. So number 1, I would say practice for it. Number 2 is attitude. You can honestly keep a positive attitude through unbelievably horrific situations. I've seen it and I've lived it. I've been with buddies that were in some of the worst environments imaginable and did so with literally a cheery disposition and laughing and taking care of one another. And if you can do that, if you can literally be, in the worst environment imaginable and have a good attitude, if nothing else, it's going to be good to be around you and good to be with you when things are, going off a cliff even, so that's super important. I don't know, if I asked a third on adversity, it would be to believe in yourself. I just think one of the things my dad taught my brother and I very, very early, not that my mom didn't, but I think my dad was a super big proponent of that. I can hear him all the time tell me in my head to trust myself. And so I trust my gut, I trust my instincts, I trust my mindset on how I'm going to do what I'm doing. And I've found over the years, I'm much further along this game than you two are. If I trusted myself, or I just at least executed on my own decision, I almost never regretted it. If it went well, great. If it went poorly, at least it was my decision to do it. If I use somebody else's decision or their advice, not to say don't look for advice, but sometimes I had to make an important decision for me, and I took advice from somebody else. If it went great, good, I wouldn't enjoy it as much because it wasn't mine. If it went bad, I'd lose my mind because I'm like, good job. You listened to something else and it wasn't what you thought was the right thing to do. So, make sure you trust yourself. I think we're literally, I mean, some people have better judgment than others, but I'm telling you, most of us know the right thing to do. Only so many people do it.
Yeah.
Totally. I think it's so important to know that like your gut instinct is usually right, and you usually know what's best for you. As well as I also love how you mentioned that, having that mindset is so important. I think that the way we view things can really change also how we act. We're able to perform better if we're not thinking, oh, I wish I wasn't here right now. I'm so stressed out. Oh, I hate it here. Instead, if you think, okay, there's still an opportunity here, I'm just going to try to push through it. It's going to be okay. At least I'm surrounded by people that I care about. You're able to get through so much more, and everyone else will also appreciate that attitude.
Yeah.
Yep. No doubt.
And I think that even like for me, we recently had a semester switch in school, and the last semester I had a class, math, that, as I'm sure you can relate to, it's a really hard class in high school. And
Yes.
so I was struggling a lot, and I was not the happiest with my final mark. And then this semester I'm doing biology, and I started off feeling like really sad and upset, and I was just like, I hate science, like I did so bad in math, and I'm just gonna keep going on this trajectory. Like, am I even gonna like graduate at this point? Like, I was just really down. And what I realized is, like, if I approach my first class, I haven't even written a bio test yet. Like, if I approach my first class with that mindset, then there's no way I'm gonna study as hard, pay attention as hard, put my effort in. And also, like, I should enjoy the science. Like, it's interesting, and like, I have to take it, so might as well enjoy it rather than like drag my feet through the whole process. And I think that that's something that's so applicable, is like, if you believe in yourself and you try to enjoy, find the little moments of joy, find the people that you enjoy doing something with, and just push through a situation, because you're gonna have to push through situations, that's inevitable. It's so beneficial. And as well as, like you mentioned, like, when you believe in yourself, you won't regret it. Like, if you hadn't believed in yourself, probably wouldn't have reapplied to this Navy SEAL training program, and then you wouldn't have gotten to have your whole career. And so it's really important.
100%. And your job as a Navy SEAL involved so many high-pressure situations that I'm sure you had to believe in yourself for, and use those tips that you just shared to conquer that adversity. But what is your top tip for staying calm underneath pressure?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is no longer a secret because it's become so well known. I still think most people don't realize the power of it. The number one hack in my mind to like handle intensity, fear, some of these situations is breathing. It sounds so simplistic, and yet you take a deep breath, and I'm sure both your parents have been like, take a deep breath, and it makes you a crazy person. And if you actually do it, you're like, oh my gosh, my heart rate just came down. And so we actually have in the SEAL teams, we have something that's called combat breathing or box breathing, where you can take a big breath in, hold it for a few seconds, big breath all the way out, hold it for a few seconds, and do that cycle a few times. We've done it where you can bring your heart rate down based on intensity very, very quickly. So breathing, and I think the breath also just gives you a minute to take a beat, to let the insanity kind of play out and get your head together and make a good choice. Sometimes if you rush and try and bang through moments that have high levels of intensity, you'll rush to failure. You'll rush to a bad decision. If you usually, I mean, trust me, because I've experienced it, even in a gunfight, I had more time almost always than I didn't need to rush. If I could go calm and make good decisions, we'd get a good result. If I rushed and didn't think clearly, bad result. Yeah. But breathing's a hack. The reason meditation and that stuff has become so popular, most of it is just focused on breathing. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Right.
For sure. I know I heard about the Navy SEAL like box breathing a while ago, and I thought it was so interesting because it's not even like something that is noticeable. Like, you can do it before a test.
Nobody even know you're doing it.
I also think that that's a really great thing that you mentioned, that I feel like oftentimes when we're stressed, we feel like, oh, like everything's happening right now. I don't have a moment of peace. But realizing and doing that breathing makes you realize that, like, it's okay. It's not coming at you straight away. And also, most of the times we're not in a gunfight, like you said.
Yeah.
And even if there is time for you during a gunfight, I think there's time for us before writing an exam or in a stressful situation or when we say something awkward in front of a friend and we need to now move away from that.
Yeah.
And I also think, there's so much science behind breathing too. Like when you breathe, you have more oxygen in your brain, you can think better and clearer. I mean, there's so many benefits that, are just more like physiological. And so, and I love that hack because kind of like Anastasia said, and like you mentioned, Rorke, you don't need anything. You don't need any person or, a certain space or environment. You can just do it in your car, do it at your desk.
Yeah. And everybody can do this. Like you said, everybody has obviously the ability and the system to do it. But I mean, you can Google or YouTube right now, breath work, and 1,000 posts would come up. And it's not something you need to be doing all day. I mean, look, if you're sitting all day having to do tactical breathing just to make it through the day, you're probably in a situation you need to reassess. But having the ability to do it when things get tough is it's a secret.
Yeah, it's very important. I love that. And so I think what's interesting is with obviously any branch of the military, you're going into a situation that you're going to face adversity and challenges in. And, sometimes, probably on a bit of a lesser scale, but anybody of any age, including teens and adults, are entering a situation where it's going to be difficult, be it, a biology class, or maybe it's going to be a job interview, or maybe it's going to be facing that friend who you really don't want to face right now.
Or math class.
Or math, like last semester. But what is your advice for, staying calm and staying kind of collected when you're going into a situation that is going to be challenging for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you can apply practice to what you're doing, that's huge, right? So if you're going to audition for a play and you didn't rehearse and practice the lines you're going in with, good luck. I mean, you're going to be stressed, freaking out. If you practice it back to front, you know it well, you've committed it. Look, you might panic, you might get twitchy and fall apart. It happens. Then you got to figure out a way to pick yourself up. You're way better off than the person that didn't prepare. So I would say preparation is key. That's one thing that you need to do. And then this might sound like dangerous advice. I also think there is a real hack in sometimes if you don't almost even know what you're supposed to do, fake it. Fake it. I mean, you can trick yourself into almost looking calm, cool, collected when you're not. It's like that duck on the surface of a pond, calm on top, and that thing's freaking out underneath the water, right? So there's times that you can just, kind of hold tough and hang tough, and it might just buy you enough time to get to the next step, the next phase, the next part of that interview. Better to couple both. Prepare, and then, even if you're not somebody that's just naturally, I mean, look, you guys have lots of friends. You obviously are both very capable talking, holding a conversation, thinking on your feet and doing things. Not every kid's like that. And we hit that at different points in your life. And so I think that kids or some people will see somebody that's like that and has the ability to, project or have a look and feel like there's tremendous confidence there. I guarantee you half the people that are like that aren't. They're tore up inside. They've just figured out a way to be like, well, I'm not going to stand in the corner, so I'll go for it. And so there's real power and agency in going for it. And just, like I said, believe in yourself. It sounds like something off a motivational poster, but it's true. I think sometimes you can even pretend that you're not freaking out and just breathe, do a little breathing, get through it, and you might get a way better result than you expected.
Definitely.
Fake it till you make it.
The box breathing, put some box breathing in there. I think that that's really smart because, sometimes, we want to be authentic in a situation, but if we are so stressed out and we sit in that emotion and we're just like start spiraling and then we start crying and we feel really stressed, it's going to perpetuate that stress and we're going to feel more stressed or more anxious or more scared. And so instead, like calming yourself down and saying, okay, I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway because I have to do this to get to that bigger picture, that dream, that goal, or even just to make it through the situation. Like if I have to face this anyway, I'm going to a situation, I need to face it anyway. Would I rather face it stressed and like all curled up or, trying to emulate confidence, and even like that body language, like we can hack our body language by doing a certain power pose or sitting up or standing up straighter. And so there are all ways to kind of like almost fake it, and then your mindset will actually shift alongside.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I also love how, when you do something hard, I love that like play analogy, when you go onto the play and you feel like you're really scared when you're auditioning, and then maybe the moments before, like when you step onto the stage, when you're about to perform, and you feel like you forgot all your lines, you remember how well you were able to do in that audition when you felt the exact same way, knowing that you were able to persevere then and that you can do the same now, and you know what you're doing because you're able to get through it even when you're scared.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's power in recognizing that a lot of times you think when something's falling apart, the person you're talking to might not see that at all. I mean, my bride is a professional musical performer. My youngest daughter is starting to do it. We had a show last weekend. She's in a musical right now. And one of her co-performers had a really off night. And I was like, I didn't notice any of it. I mean, literally, I didn't notice a single mistake. I mean, somebody falls flat on their face, you're probably going to notice it. And there's a graceful way to get out of that, too, if you just have the confidence. But half the time you think you're freaking out and under pressure and it's falling apart, the other person is unaware of it and thinks you're doing fine. So don't give somebody else fuel. I mean, that's the fake it part. And so much, you got to be careful with the fake it. You can't fake it to go do brain surgery. You better do the preparation and learn how to do it. But these initial things, interviews, auditions, kind of getting out of your own way to try something new. That's where sometimes you can be like, I'm going to give myself motivation, whether it's there or not, and go try it. And it's probably going to go better than you think. And even if you think you bombed, I mean, I've had plenty of times where I thought I bombed it and I didn't. So don't give yourself a harder time than you deserve.
Don't make up the other person's mind of you.
Totally.
You might be worried about something, but you still have all those same skills as when you're stressed as when you are confident. So kind of
Totally.
channel that confident mode.
Yeah, and I remember when Mercedes and I were younger, we used to do these piano recitals, and I remember that I would go to these, and I felt like when I would play, it would be like, I wouldn't always do the best, but then I would listen to everyone else play, and I was like, how do they do it so perfectly? I mean, of course, like if they like screwed up and did really, really badly and had like, I don't know, crashed out on the piano, of course, then you notice. But for the most part, if you missed a note or two, no one's going to say, oh, they ruined the whole song. No, because you don't notice, you don't pick it up. And as long as you don't point it out and you say, sorry, I missed a few notes, no one will notice.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so you've mentioned that you have obviously a wonderful family and 2 daughters. And so how do you spend time together as a family?
Yeah, we're I wouldn't say we're homebodies. We do 2 things. We love to travel, so we do a lot of travel, around the country, trips here locally, and then once a year we try and get overseas, which we're blessed enough to have, resources to go do that. So we've had a chance to do a lot of that. So we love to travel and be together. But when we're home, we love being home. We've really made our place, our house, a place that we want to be, a place where our daughter's friends want to be. So yeah, we kind of made our house a real sanctuary. So between it being, comfortable and loving and always having something good to eat and, somebody there to, treat you well, it's just a place we like being together. So we like, getting adventures and doing big things. And we also like kicking back on the couch and, watching a movie or a show that we all enjoy together. So it's a good combination of, I think, or balance of all those things. But travel's probably the biggest. We kind of, like exercise, being out of doors, and then we like being indoors, just relaxing.
For sure. I mean, you got to have a variety of different things you can do with the family. And it's great that you created such a little sanctuary where you can, feel like you can get more energy and refill after a hard day at school or, doing difficult things.
Yeah. And we love watching movies together. We almost every night, if time permits, to watch a bit of a show as a whole family or watch a movie. We love to watch business-inspired shows. We watched one on Spotify the other week, and it was great.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
And so what do you think is one lesson that you have learned from your journey as a SEAL that you would like to teach your daughters?
If our episodes help you hack your happiness and find a small bit of happiness in every day, be sure to share this episode with a teen in your life or anyone in your life who could use a small bit of happiness, as well as shop our happiness wellness products to bring a small bit of happiness to your home, linked in the description.
I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier. I knew we'd kind of get back to it. It's that idea of not giving up. I mean, it sounds so simple. Everyone knows it's not. There's always an excuse to give up. I mean, if you if you don't want to do something or something hard is in front of you, you will always be able to find probably even a legitimate excuse not to do it. The people that succeed are the ones that have the discipline, that say, I'm going to keep plugging away, I'm going to keep swinging, I'm going to keep trying. So, no, I think my SEAL class started with 185 candidates, and we graduated 22. And the 22 that graduated didn't quit. And I'm not saying all the other guys did quit, but most did. Most said, I can't do it, I'm not going any further, and their adventure ended there. So if I could have anything, I would say not to quit, and like I said, from what my dad taught me, to trust themselves, to really trust their own voice, their own direction, their own choices, and the rest of it will work itself out.
For sure. I mean, I think that knowing that you can keep going and not quitting is so important. But if it is time to quit, how do you know that it's time to quit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more art than it is science. I think it depends on the situation. I think it depends on what effort you've given to it, and I've also think it depends on kind of the the consequences almost of the moment, right? So, look, I've been in relationships that weren't good, and that's not one to say I'm never going to quit this. There are relationships you need to move on from. There are, situations you're in that you're like, look, this has turned dangerous or gone a direction that's unhealthy. I'm going to get out of the way of that. So it's definitely not, dying on a hill like Custer. You got to know when to, cash the chips in and move on. I say that mostly in when you're setting to the task, you have a goal, you have a direction, you're trying to build something and get to a place. That's where you don't want to throw in the towel. And I think if you're the type of person that's going to go further than anybody else to get there, you'll know if something needs to be, look, I've given everything I can, I'm not going to get there. I don't have the ability. This isn't actually the right thing for me. It's time to move on. I think that's easier to assess than harder. And sometimes it is hard to assess, and maybe a buddy is like, look, you've been banging your head against the wall for a long time. It might be time for another direction or something else. But I think those usually tell you when it's time without you having to work too hard at it.
Definitely.
Sure.
It's definitely, I agree, more of an art than a science. It varies but case by case, it varies person by person, and like not feeling bad for quitting something as long as you know like why you are quitting it, and you know that there's something better that you could be doing alternatively.
And it also roots back into that trusting yourself, knowing that the decision you're making is the right choice for you.
Exactly.
And you've also spoken about how you have gone through so many different places as a Navy SEAL, and that creates a lot of change. And I know that changes can be very difficult, as well as how you moved out of the military. For many teens, we face a lot of change on our horizon as well, and this reality can be very intimidating and overwhelming. What's your mindset around change and evolving, and what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think change is just such an everyday and then continual process. So, I mean, anybody thinks they can lock themselves into one thing and there will be no change will absolutely fall flat on that belief. Now, I know people that have done, a singular job for 30, 40 years. That's what they're great at and do. And maybe their job hasn't changed, but, life, technology, the tides of politics in the world. I mean, everything is constantly in flux. So I think you have to embrace it. I think you have to have non-negotiables in your life, like whether it be your faith, your principles, the things you believe in that are anchor points that make you who you are. You're not going to give up on those. But I think also being to adapt and be like water that flows, no matter what it's hitting or where it's going. Those people will meet with tremendous success. And those that are like, I refuse to change, will almost certainly get left behind. So you really just have to embrace it and kind of be ready for it. I've always found it as interesting. I told you I love to read, and every book has chapters, and I look at life that way. I've had, one, I get to be the author of my own story, and then two, I've enjoyed every chapter, even the bad ones, because I look back on them fondly because, if I lost, I didn't lose the lesson. Or if it went bad, I'm still going to take something out of that to not do it again or learn from it. So, no, you got to just be able to embrace change, be ready for it, because there's nothing you can do to stop it. That's for sure.
Definitely. I love the idea of you are your own author, because it's true, like you are in the driver's seat. Ultimately, like obviously there's factors we cannot control, but change will happen regardless in various different areas. Some change we can control, some change we can't so much control, and that's just kind of the nature of life. And so what would you say is kind of next for you in terms of like,
Oh yeah, no, sorry, I didn't answer that part. I've actually never been a great kind of 5, 10 long range plan person. I think you read in a bunch of business books and with like, self-help gurus, they would say if you don't have a 5, 10 year, 15-year plan, like you're never going to get anywhere. I do not agree with that. I really don't. The amount of what we just discussed, change and unforeseen wins and shifts of how things can play out, I think you just need to be ready for the fight. I think you need to, like in the military, we say, keep your sword sharp, keep your powder dry so you're ready to go, shoot and be in the fight. And if you can do that, then the changes in where it's going to take you, I have found tend to happen. I didn't ever set out to be a speaker and a consultant with companies. I did the military. That was a surprise. I mean, that happened like we described earlier. These weren't paths I felt like I chose. I mean, I participated in it, but it feels like in many ways there's a hand at play or something laying that out in front of me. I just took the path that looked challenging and interesting and went that way. So I'd love to tell you what's next. I don't know what's next. I mean, I think I'm always open to the opportunities. I like helping. I like serving. I like, being in the mix of studying and thinking and kind of seeing how I can motivate people to, reach their best level of ability and do that myself. And I'm blinking, and as I'm looking at you two, I'm watching, my girls grow like that, and they're going to be out of the house. So I'm just enjoying every second of that. When they get off of their own adventures, then I'll figure out my bride and my next adventure.
I absolutely love that. And it kind of goes into that like be like water mindset that you mentioned. Like sometimes you just have to go with the flow and see where that ends up taking you. And that's kind of the beauty of life, is you're not tied down in a certain place, but you don't have like a promised certain place that you're going to in terms of like career or goals. And so we've talked a lot today about how, it's so important to believe in ourselves. And one of the most important lessons that you hope to teach your daughters is to believe in themselves. But who would you say, Rorke, was the first person who believed in you?
I told you earlier, I hit the lottery in parents. My dad has just been a forever mentor and archetype of who I'm trying to be and want to be as a man. I get emotional even thinking about it because he's such a great example. My mom, very much a dreamer and a very different personality. Would be something if she wasn't my mom, she'd probably just drive me nothing but crazy. Because she was my mom, my brother and I took big swings at what we wanted to do in this life because of her. So I've had great coaches and mentors, pastors, good people in my life that have had a lot of belief. And in some ways, some of the best things that have happened to me to nudge me were the people that didn't believe in me. I mean, I can remember a couple people that doubted me, or I had a 6th grade teacher that was, truly, literally an evil human being. My dad tells me stories of how she was tough on me in class and mean and thought I was stupid and embarrassed me in class. And there's something interesting about that, because some of your doubters and some of the people that will say, I don't think you can do it, don't listen to them and then prove them wrong. Like, some of those are good. So I'd say equally the belief in good people and the non-belief in some were every bit as potent,
I think it's really important also to like view that, like that mindset again, instead of saying, oh, they don't believe in me, maybe they have a reason not to, maybe I can't really do this. Or instead you think, let me prove them wrong. Let me find a way to do it and prove the people who do believe in me as well as me prove me right.
Yeah, and I never gave those people power, like in the terms of like proving them wrong. It wasn't like that's why I'm going to do it. It's just, for instance, I told you I played 2 sports. I played water polo in high school. If you played water polo, that's a fall sport in California, and then a spring sport is swimming, and usually those two go together. And I played water polo in the fall and was at an elite level and probably going to go to college to do that. In the spring, I swam, and my freshman year, I was winning league championships, so I could have gone far there. And I told that swimming coach I wanted to play lacrosse. He lost his mind. He was so rude. He was so mean. He thought I was making the worst decision of my life. It was all I could do to when I got recruited to play at Syracuse. My freshman year, we won the Division I national championship. I almost wanted to send the national championship ring on, you can imagine what finger on my hand, to tell him, hey, as it turns out, this was a good choice, but it's not who I am. And so do it for you. But if they give you a little fire, that doesn't hurt any,
100%.
Use it as like motivation
Yeah, use it as fuel. Use it as fuel.
instead of as a means to set you back.
Exactly.
And so something that we like to ask all our guests is, what do you do every day that brings you a small bit of happiness?
I have a really disciplined morning routine. So I get up early because I like getting up early, and it's kind of just my normal cycle. But I start my morning with breathing, some breath work to kind of just get myself charged up. I do a little bit of writing, which is either, kind of like journaling or thinking what's going on with the day, or I make notes about things that I want to do. And then I just do a little bit of time of kind of gratitude and I would call it prayer. If you call it just thinking about, where you want to go and what you want to do. I try and do that every day because it kind of sets that standard, just like you said about making your bed. That's a solid step you take in the morning. That is a success, as ridiculous as that sounds, but it sets to a task and kind of a style. So I try and do that in the morning. And then physical training for me has always been, super important because it's good for you. It's far better for my mental health. I have to be working out hard, or I'm the worst version of myself. My family knows that if I start getting short or in a bad mood, they're like, why don't you go get a workout? And then I feel great. So those two things are super important. Morning routine, gratitude for this gift we have in this life, and then getting a good workout in.
Oh my gosh, I love all those things because they're all like little habits that you
Totally.
can build into your day, like that we can so easily contribute to our day-to-day.
Everybody can do those. Yeah.
And they can really add so much to our happiness.
And I love how you mentioned that it's like a little success for you to do it every morning.
Yep.
Because I really think that that's, having those little morning successes then help us feel good about ourselves. So then we're able to have that motivation and extra push to be disciplined and complete what we need to do during that day.
Yeah, every once in a while on a weekend you want to sleep in, knock out. I've rarely hit the snooze button and been happy about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So we also love to ask this question. What is a motivational quote that you love and remember, and why?
Oh, I should have paid attention. No, I love quotes. It's easy. I have too many to go to. I'll give you two. Winston Churchill, as I said, that book I read that kind of led me towards the military. He has some of the all-time greatest quotes. He's actually right here, and with a Tommy gun and a cigar, his old look as the British statesman. He had one. It might not have been his, but he certainly coined it, which is, and it kind of goes with the not quitting. If you're going through hell, keep going. So that's a pretty good place to start. And then the other one, particularly because I think it's important for young people to realize that mindset that we've been talking about is whether you think you can or you think you can't, or think you can't, you're right. So you might as well believe in yourself and go do it. Because if you think you can't, you'll prove that true. If you think you can, I guarantee you're going to meet with success, no doubt.
I love that. Again, all the way going back to the mindset.
Yeah, it's so we play such a big role in our own lives, like the way that we see things, like through our own mindset and like the lens that we perceive, Yeah. Can I do this? Can I not do this? Is this person gonna be a good friend, or is this person trying to, secretly stab me in the back? There's always some sort of perspective to everything, and if we can achieve the more positive perspective, we can lead a more positive lifestyle.
I love it.
And so, Rorke, thank you so much for sharing all your insights with us today. If our audience wants to keep up and learn more, where could they find you?
Yep. I'm terrible at that, but I have a bunch of my social media stuff. You guys are probably better and can figure out a way to post this. I've got Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff, YouTube channel, where I'm starting to put a lot more content of a lot of stuff that we like talking about. It's principles I've learned from my time in the military, something my daughters taught me, something I learned, at the grocery store because something unfolded that has a lesson, and they can find me, Rorke Denver, my name, first name, last name, you'll find me out there, and no, I appreciate you saying it.
Amazing. Well, we'll have some of your social media linked in the show notes so anyone can follow along. And thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your incredible story, your experiences, and your insights.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, ladies. You're both a delight to talk to. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Hack Your Happiness.
And a huge thank you to Rorke for joining us today. This is such an inspiring and motivational episode and opportunity to speak to him. Anastasia, what was your biggest takeaway?
I think one of my biggest takeaways is to be the best team member as possible, the most important thing you can do is just respect others. You don't have to become best friends with everyone there. As long as you respect that you're there to do your job and they're trying their best to do theirs as well. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
What about you, Mercedes?
Absolutely, respecting your family, your friends, your teachers, your colleagues, all of that is so essential. For me, one of my biggest takeaways is the importance of believing in yourself. I think that, kind of like how Rorke ended off with one of his motivational quotes, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. I think that's so motivational and inspiring and impactful because, the way that we set ourselves up for happiness and success is believing that, yes, we can feel happier. Yes, we can control our happiness. Yes, we can achieve that goal. Yes, we can find a positive group of people in our life. And so as soon as you give up on that, you're not going to actively seek it out. So mindset is everything, and believe in yourself in all different veins of life.
Your mindset is so important.
Totally. If you enjoyed this episode, check out our episode with professor, psychologist, and best-selling author Angela Duckworth, where she discusses her hacks for resilience and grit.
I said out loud to my husband, I think I should retire. And he was like, oh, what do you mean? And I was like, I mean, retire. I really don't think I'm very good at this. So I think we can all catastrophize, including me. And I will say, in terms of what I learned from that and how I got through it, I was recently talking to my therapist, because I have a therapist. Her name is Dee. And I was talking to her about that time, sort of looking back now with like a year perspective. And she said, well, what you had handholds.
You can listen to our full episode with Angela now, link in show notes.
If you enjoyed this week's episode of Hack Your Happiness, please leave us a 5-star review from wherever you're listening. It really helps us out and we really appreciate it.
Also, be sure to join our happiness family. It's completely free and we'd love to have you. That way you'll also never miss another episode of the podcast, and you can join by following Hack Your Happiness on whichever podcast listening platform you're on now.
See you next time.